Long before maps, compasses, or recorded history, a few daring humans pushed their boats beyond the horizon. They didn't just leave footprints, they left genes. Among those genetic markers, one lineage quietly connects the Middle East, the Mediterranean, North Africa, and even parts of South Asia. Scientists call it Haplogroup T, a Y-chromosome branch often described as the seafaring gene. Its story reads like an ancient voyage, born in the Fertile Crescent, carried by traders, farmers, and explorers who transformed coastlines into crossroads. Genetic evidence traces Haplogroup T back roughly 45,000 years to the region stretching from modern-day Iraq and Iran into the Levant. It emerged from the same population that produced early branches J and L, the lineages that helped seed farming cultures after the Ice Age. But unlike many lineages that stayed inland, T's descendants turned their eyes to the water. They followed rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates, then the coasts of the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, using primitive boats long before recorded navigation. To understand Haplogroup T is to glimpse the restless human spirit, a drive to explore and connect distant worlds. So, around 10,000 BCE, humans in the Fertile Crescent began domesticating crops and animals. Archaeology and DNA show that Haplogroup T men were part of this transformation. From their homeland, they moved westward through Anatolia into the Mediterranean, bringing with them early farming knowledge. At the same time, other groups carrying T spread south into Arabia and North Africa, maybe following herds or trading things like obsidian, shells, and salt. This agricultural diaspora really reshaped ecosystems and societies, and T's presence became a genetic signature of that first wave of civilization. By 7000 BCE, humans around the Red Sea had mastered long-distance navigation along coasts. Haplogroup T lineages flourished among these communities. When scientists sampled modern populations in Yemen, Oman, and Eritrea, they found T at notable frequencies echoing an ancient maritime network. These were the proto-traders who ferried ideas, livestock, and technologies between Africa and Asia millennia before the rise of Egypt. Through them, copper tools, beads, and grains crossed oceans, and with every voyage, so did their DNA. Thousands of years later, the descendants of Haplogroup T helped fuel the boom of Mediterranean civilizations. Genetic traces appear in Minoan Crete, ancient Cyprus, the Levant, and coastal Italy. Maritime cultures such as the Phoenicians, renowned for their trade routes and sea colonies, likely carried this lineage westward. Some researchers even propose that seafaring merchants from the Near East, possibly bearing Haplogroup T, established early contact networks that predated classical Greece. Wherever harbors rose and sails filled, T left a small but lasting imprint. The story doesn't end at the Mediterranean shore. T's genetic footprint extends deep into North and East Africa, from Egypt and Sudan to Ethiopia and coastal Kenya. Ancient DNA from the Nile Valley shows Near Eastern influence during the early farming period, matching the arrival of Haplogroup T and related lineages. In Somalia, studies reveal T persisting in pastoral populations, whose ancestors traded across the Indian Ocean. This genetic corridor hints at two-way movement, people sailing not just out of Africa, but also into it. As maritime skills evolved, Haplogroup T men joined one of history's grandest trade networks, the Indo-Arabian Sea Route. They carried spices, textiles, and metallurgy know-how to India and Sri Lanka, leaving minor but measurable traces in South Asian Y-DNA databases. These were not conquerors but connectors, weaving the Indian Ocean world long before European empires. The same winds that filled their sails also spread genes linking Mesopotamia, Arabia, and the Deccan coast. Modern genetic surveys estimate that Haplogroup T accounts for about 1 to 2% of men in Europe, up to 10% in parts of the Middle East, and even higher in isolated pockets of East Africa. These percentages may seem small, but they map the outlines of ancient trade. Wherever exchange flourished, from coastal Greece to the Horn of Africa, T appears like faint ink on a parchment of history. Sub-branches such as T1A1 and T1A2 show how this lineage adapted and diversified. Some are found among Mediterranean islanders, others among Ethiopian highlanders, and still others scattered through Central Asia. Each branch tells a micro-story of migration, intermarriage, and endurance. Researchers studying Y-chromosome mutations use Haplogroup T to trace human mobility after the Ice Age. The mutations defining it, notably M70, serve as timestamps in our genome. Ancient genomes from Neolithic Anatolia, early Arabian burials, and North African coastal sites reveal early instances of T, confirming its role in linking continents. It demonstrates that maritime trade and coastal migration were shaping human diversity thousands of years earlier than once thought. In short, Haplogroup T is biological proof that civilization spread by sail as much as by foot. While genetics deals in molecules, Haplogroup T also whispers through culture. The regions where it once thrived share striking parallels: boat-building traditions, star-based navigation, and myths of people emerging from the sea. From the Oman coast to Crete, these echoes suggest an unbroken memory of those early voyagers. Even if their names are lost, their genetic signatures remain a living record of humanity's first maritime golden age. Why does this small Y-chromosome branch deserve attention? Because it redefines what we mean by connection. Haplogroup T proves that collaboration across cultures began not in modern times, but in prehistory. It tells us our ancestors weren't divided by oceans, they were linked by them. For geneticists, it also provides key data for mapping disease resistance and adaptation in coastal populations, showing how ancient travel shaped modern biology. And for everyone else, it reminds us that exploration is in our blood, literally. Haplogroup T may be rare, but its story carries vast weight. It is the gene of sailors, farmers, and dreamers who transformed isolation into exchange. Next time you look at a map of the ancient world, imagine invisible roots drawn not in ink, but in DNA. Threads of Haplogroup T stretching from the deserts of Arabia to the shores of Greece, from Africa's Horn to India's coast. It's the quiet lineage that taught humanity the meaning of connection, and its legacy still flows in the veins of those whose ancestors once trusted the wind.